In the volatile emotional terrain of the bold and the beautiful, there are moments when danger does not announce itself with chaos, but instead slips silently into spaces that once felt safe, reshaping them into something unrecognizable. The Cliff House, perched above the endless stretch of ocean, has long symbolized a fragile kind of peace, a place where storms could be observed from a distance rather than endured firsthand. Yet on this day, that illusion fractures with terrifying precision, as the quiet rhythm of Steffy's solitude is interrupted not by noise, but by presence. Sheila does not arrive like a force of nature. She arrives like a shadow that has always been there, waiting for the right moment to step forward. Steffy, caught in a rare moment of stillness, has no time to process the shift before it is already too late. The intrusion is swift, controlled, and disturbingly efficient. There is no struggle that alters the outcome, no opportunity to escape the inevitability of what is unfolding. The sedative enters her system not as an act of rage, but as an act of calculation, designed to strip away resistance and replace it with helplessness. In that instant, the balance of power is not just altered, it is obliterated. Steffy, who has spent so much of her life confronting danger head-on, is reduced to stillness, her strength rendered irrelevant by the methodical precision of someone who understands exactly how to dismantle it. What follows is not simply an act of physical control, but the construction of a psychological stage, one in which every element is carefully arranged to maximize impact. Sheila does not merely restrain Steffy, she transforms her into a symbol, an image of vulnerability meant to be witnessed, interpreted, and feared. The bindings are not just functional, they are deliberate, chosen to communicate a message that extends far beyond the immediate moment. This is not about containment. It is about domination, about forcing others to see what happens when control is lost. Deacon's role in this unfolding nightmare is perhaps the most complex, defined not by choice, but by coercion. He is not an ally, not truly, but neither is he free. Sheila's grip on him is not physical in the same way it is with Steffy, but it is no less constricting. It exists in the space between fear and guilt, between what he knows is wrong and what he feels powerless to prevent. His compliance is not born of agreement, but of survival, and that distinction weighs heavily on him as he becomes an unwilling participant in a plan he neither supports nor fully understands. The moment Sheila forces him to initiate the video call becomes a turning point, not because it escalates the situation, but because it exposes it. The private horror of the Cliff House is no longer contained within its walls. It is projected outward, transmitted directly into Taylor's world, collapsing the distance between them in the most brutal way possible. The screen flickers to life, and with it, a reality that cannot be denied, cannot be softened, cannot be explained away. Taylor's reaction is immediate, visceral, and profoundly human. There is no time for analysis, no space for composure. The image of her daughter, bound and defenseless, overrides everything else, reducing her to a state of pure, unfiltered emotion. Shock gives way to horror, horror to desperation, and desperation to a kind of pleading that transcends language, rooted in a primal need to protect, to intervene, to undo what has already been set in motion. Sheila's appearance on the screen transforms the call from a revelation into a confrontation. Her voice, steady and controlled, carries with it a confidence that is deeply unsettling because it suggests not just power, but certainty. She does not need to raise her voice, does not need to assert dominance through aggression. Her authority is inherent, derived from the fact that she holds all the variables, controls all the outcomes. In this moment, she is not reacting to the situation. She is defining it. The choice she presents is not a choice in any meaningful sense. It is a manipulation, a carefully constructed dilemma designed to force Taylor into an impossible position. Say goodbye to Steffy, or say goodbye to Deacon. The cruelty lies not just in the options themselves, but in the implication behind them, that Taylor's decision will determine the fate of those she loves, that her voice, her words, carry a weight they were never meant to bear. It is a distortion of agency, a way of making her feel responsible for outcomes she has no real power to control. Taylor's response is not measured, not strategic. It is instinctive, driven by a love that overrides logic, that rejects the premise of the choice entirely. Her pleas are not attempts to negotiate, but expressions of refusal, a refusal to accept a reality in which her daughter's life can be reduced to a decision, a refusal to participate in a game that demands such a sacrifice. When she offers herself in place of Steffy, it is not a calculated move, but an act of surrender, a declaration that she would rather bear the pain herself than allow it to touch her child. Deacon, standing at the edge of this emotional storm, becomes a figure of internal conflict so intense that it borders on paralysis. He is both observer and participant, both victim and accomplice. The weight of his past decisions, his entanglement with Sheila, his betrayal of her trust, all converge in this moment, shaping the choice he is now forced to make. When he ultimately chooses Steffy, it is not simply an act of redemption, but an acknowledgement of what he has already lost, what he cannot afford to lose again. It is a desperate attempt to reclaim some fragment of moral clarity in a situation that offers none. For a brief moment, it appears as though the nightmare might be easing. Sheila loosens the bindings, allowing Steffy a degree of freedom that feels almost surreal in its suddenness. The tension shifts, not dissipating entirely, but changing in texture, moving from immediate terror to cautious relief. It is a fragile moment, one that exists on the edge of hope, sustained by the belief that perhaps, just perhaps, the worst is past. But Sheila does not operate within the boundaries of expectation, and it is precisely this unpredictability that makes her so dangerous. The relief she offers is not genuine. It is a tool, a way of amplifying the impact of what comes next. When she turns her attention back to Deacon, her words carry a quiet finality that strips away any remaining illusion of mercy. His choice, his sacrifice, is revealed to be meaningless, not because it lacked sincerity, but because it was never going to alter the outcome. This revelation transforms the entire situation, reframing it not as a test, but as a demonstration. Sheila was never interested in the decision itself. She was interested in the process, in the emotional unraveling it would produce, in the way it would expose the vulnerabilities of those involved. Deacon's hope, Taylor's desperation, Steffy's fear. All of it becomes part of a larger narrative that Sheila controls with unnerving precision. Her final declaration, that she will make Taylor's life a living hell, extends the conflict beyond the immediate moment, transforming it into something ongoing, something that cannot be resolved with a single act or a single confrontation. It is a promise of continued disruption, a signal that what has happened is not an endpoint, but a beginning. As the scene draws to a close, the tension does not resolve. It lingers, suspended in a state of uncertainty that feels almost suffocating. The characters are left not with answers, but with questions, not with closure, but with the knowledge that they have been pulled into a conflict that will continue to evolve, to escalate, to challenge everything they thought they understood about themselves and each other. What makes this sequence so powerful is not just the events themselves, but the emotional currents that run beneath them, shaping the way each character responds, the way each decision is made. It is a study in control and vulnerability, in the ways power can be asserted not just through action, but through perception, through the manipulation of belief and expectation. And as the final image lingers, one cannot escape the feeling that the true danger has yet to fully reveal itself, that what has been witnessed is only a fragment of a much larger, more complex reality, one that will continue to unfold in ways that are as unpredictable as they are inevitable, leaving behind a trail of consequences that will reshape everything in their path. Taylor's shocking choice does not come in the form of surrender, and that is what changes everything. For one suspended, unbearable moment, it seems as though she will continue begging Sheila for mercy, continue collapsing under the emotional torture of being forced to watch Steffy bound and terrified while Deacon stands there pale and trapped, already half destroyed by the role Sheila has forced him to play. Sheila expects tears, panic, bargaining. She expects Taylor to remain exactly what she wants her to be in that moment. A mother stripped down to helplessness, a woman so overwhelmed by fear that she can no longer think, only react. But Taylor, shaking and shattered though she is, suddenly makes a decision that even Sheila does not see coming. Instead of choosing between Steffy and Deacon, instead of participating in the cruel logic Sheila has built around this nightmare, Taylor refuses the premise entirely and turns the weapon of truth directly back on Sheila. With her voice breaking but steadying through pure force of will, Taylor makes it clear that she will not let Sheila define the terms of this moment. She tells Sheila that if this is truly the path she wants to take, then Sheila will have to do it while hearing the one truth she can never escape, that she is not losing Deacon because Taylor stole him, but because every person Sheila claims to love eventually becomes a prisoner, a target, or a casualty of her obsession. That choice is shocking not because it is loud, but because it is fearless. Taylor chooses to stop begging and start exposing, even while her daughter remains in danger. She chooses to look directly into the darkness rather than feed it. And for the first time in the entire confrontation, Sheila's expression changes. That single shift matters because Sheila's entire plan depends on emotional control. She wants Taylor frantic, not clear. She wants Deacon guilty, not morally awake. She wants Steffy terrified, not defiant. But Taylor's refusal to play the role of a broken mother begins to destabilize the entire emotional architecture of the scene. She does not stop loving, fearing, or hurting. Those feelings are written all over her face. Yet she weaponizes clarity, and in doing so she hits the one nerve Sheila never protects well enough, the possibility that everything she calls love is actually possession, and that deep down she knows it. Taylor goes further, and this is where her choice becomes truly explosive. She declares that if Sheila wants revenge, then Taylor herself will come to her, alone, without the police, without Finn, without Steffy's family, without any shield at all. She tells Sheila to let Steffy go completely and take her instead. But unlike her earlier desperate plea for substitution, this is no longer the cry of a woman willing to die blindly. It is a calculated emotional gamble. Taylor is not just offering herself. She is forcing Sheila to reveal what she really wants. If Sheila accepts, then it proves Steffy was only leverage. If she refuses, then it exposes that this was never about Deacon, never truly about betrayal, but about the twisted satisfaction of terrorizing a mother through her child. Deacon immediately understands the danger of what Taylor is doing, and the horror on his face deepens because he realizes that she is stepping into a psychological battlefield where Sheila has always been most lethal. He tries to speak, tries to stop the momentum of Taylor's sacrifice, but Sheila silences him with a glance so cold it lands harder than a scream. What crushes Deacon in that instant is not only fear for Steffy or Taylor, but the dawning realization that all his compromises, all his attempts to manage Sheila, to placate her, to survive near her without igniting the worst parts of her, have failed. He thought choosing Steffy might mean something. He thought there might still be rules buried somewhere inside Sheila's madness. But Taylor's move exposes the truth more brutally than any accusation could. Sheila has not built this moment around pain alone. She has built it around humiliation, around forcing everyone in her orbit to reveal exactly what they are willing to sacrifice while she remains the only one untouched by moral consequence. Steffy, though still weakened, begins to understand what her mother is doing, and the emotional force of that realization jolts her harder than the sedative ever could. She sees the shift in Taylor's face through the screen, the transformation from desperation to terrible resolve, and something primal rises inside her. She has always fought when cornered, always refused to remain the helpless object in somebody else's game, and now that instinct begins pushing through the haze. The ropes may have been loosened, but Sheila made the mistake of mistaking partial freedom for surrender. Steffy starts watching more carefully, breathing more deliberately, measuring distance, reading movement. She recognizes that Taylor's shocking choice is buying time as much as it is exposing Sheila. It is forcing the confrontation into a new shape, one that Sheila can no longer control as smoothly. Sheila, however, is too emotionally provoked now to retreat. Taylor's words have cut through her triumph and touched the rawest layer of her rage. The idea that Deacon was not stolen but repelled, that he moved toward Taylor because Taylor represented safety, dignity, restraint, and real human tenderness, is unbearable to her. Sheila can handle hatred better than rejection. Hatred at least acknowledges her power. Rejection suggests something far worse, that despite all her intensity, all her obsession, all her claims of passionate devotion, she still cannot inspire genuine trust. That realization turns her expression harder, flatter, more dangerous. When she finally speaks again, her voice carries a new kind of venom. She says Taylor wants to be the hero, wants to martyr herself, wants to prove she is morally superior. Then she laughs, but the sound is brittle now, stripped of its earlier confidence. Taylor's choice has wounded her, and a wounded Sheila is in